honestly can't remember what Barry Levinson's reaction was when I told him that I was treating the cancer alternatively, but I do know how wonderful his private chef was in accommodating my needs. He was a big German man, and although one wouldn't have suspected that his cuisine was exactly on the healthy side, he not only made sure that Barry ate the most nutritious meals, but he did the same for me. He said he was happy to juice vegetables for me, and it seems that I started a healthy trend, because soon Barry was juicing too. I spent more time with my goddaughter, Teresa, and when I told her of the cancer diagnosis, she was upset. "I've just found you again, and I don't want to lose you." "Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere," I told her. However, a couple of weeks later, with the Sphere script in as good a shape as it was ever going to be, it was time for me to leave Vallejo and return home. Since my cancer diagnosis was now pretty much common knowledge on the film set, everyone wished me well, and especially with my forthcoming lymph node surgery. In fact, on the day of my surgery, I received 2 beautiful flower arrangements, one from the cast and crew of Sphere and the other from Barry and his wife and family. Thankfully, the removal of 14 lymph nodes from under my right arm was done under general anesthetic, so it wasn't as traumatic as my biopsy. And the good news was that the cancer hadn't spread to the lymph nodes. Yay! So now I felt it was time to begin in earnest my holistic approach to the breast cancer diagnosis. Naturally, my friends were concerned that I would choose this path, and more than one tried to convince me to please consider chemotherapy and radiation. But I was determined to deal with this insidious intruder in my own way. It's interesting the choices we make in times of crisis. And often, even though we think we know how we'd react to a given situation, when that time comes, it could be a totally different reaction. When I got the diagnosis, my first thought was that I had a good life and that I wasn't afraid to die. In fact, I've always looked forward to a new adventure on the other side. Call me crazy. But this didn't mean that I was just going to lie down and wait for the inevitable. No, I was going to explore different ways to make my body healthier and stronger. This included regular visits to the gym, yoga, attending special breathing exercise classes, meditation, and shiatsu massage. I also sent a sample of my hair to a specialist in Hawaii to determine the amount of metals, etc. in my system, and I was given natural supplements to rid my body of toxins found. I had regular acupuncture sessions with a holistic therapist who prescribed various Chinese herbs. I began a macrobiotic diet, which consisted of mostly grains and root vegetables with seaweed, which I loved. There were no fats, though, no dairy or wheat or sugar. Then Jack, a friend of mine, said he'd been going to a hypnotherapist who was helping him with an issue he had. I can't remember what it was. Actually, I don't think he told me. Anyway, he said I should give that a try. Well, why not? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. He gave me the phone number of the hypnotherapist, Chuck Hirsch, who lived just a few blocks away from me in Santa Monica. I wasn't quite sure what to expect since I'd never been to a hypnotherapist before. But Jack assured me that Chuck was great and quite a character. Well, of course, that part of his description was attractive to me. I love characters. Anyway, I wasn't disappointed and felt immediately comfortable when Chuck opened his door. He was quite short, with sandy-coloured hair and freckles, and probably 50-something. And he wore very attractive glasses on his round face and really exuded warmth. I felt I'd known him for years. Inside his apartment overlooking the ocean, I was struck by the amount of original artwork on his walls. It was eclectic and very interesting. I learned that Chuck's late father, Joseph Hirsch, had been a renowned multi-award-winning painter, illustrator, and muralist. Social commentary was the backbone of his art, especially works depicting civic corruption and racial injustice in America. This was reflected on Chuck's walls, along with early work by Jackson Pollock. Apparently, Joseph Hirsch gave paint to an impoverished Pollock and several other needy artists, and in exchange, he received pieces of their art, some of which was now owned by his son. Lucky guy. I explained why I was there, another way of treating the breast cancer, and he laid me down on his couch. Then, with his hypnotherapy methods, Chuck guided me into a relaxed state as a way of tapping into those deeper parts of me that might be creating the dis-ease in my body. During the whole session, I was aware of everything that Chuck was saying. Although I sometimes seemed to respond involuntarily, the whole experience left me feeling uplifted and stronger in spirit. So I continued with hypnotherapy and began to learn not only more about myself, but about Chuck as well. It turns out that in another life he'd been a film producer. Well, this was LA after all, so what else was new? Anyway, in the late 60s, early 70s, he'd co-written 2 scripts with Brian De Palma and produced both films, which De Palma directed. The titles were Greetings and Hi Mom. I'd never heard of them, but Chuck told me that Robert De Niro had starred in both films, and apparently Greetings was his first major role at the age of 25. One day, Chuck called me and said he'd been approached by the producers of a half-hour TV show called Strange Universe, which focused on various paranormal phenomena and New Age topics, including hypnotherapy. They wanted to see Chuck in action, and he asked if I'd be his subject. The producers interviewed me and said they'd also like to follow me and cover my daily regimen. This included my daily walks on the beach and nature paths, juicing vegetables, preparing macrobiotic food, as well as witnessing my shiatsu treatments. There was a bit of a snag with that, though, because Misako, the sweet Japanese lady who was my massage therapist, was not willing to go on camera. I can't remember who initially recommended Misako, but it was quite a surprise when she arrived at my apartment. In her 60s, she was very slightly built and didn't look very strong at all. However, I was soon to discover her enormous power. In her broken English, she asked me to lie on my front, fully clothed, on the floor, and then she began to rock me gently from side to side, just like a baby in a crib. It felt really nice and so relaxing. But then she began using her fingers and hands on certain acupressure points in my body, which hurt quite a bit. When I winced, she said, "Pain, good." It didn't feel so good at the time, but I thought, no pain, no gain. That night, after Misako's first brutal treatment, I slept better than I had in weeks. I also felt calmer, more peaceful. So I continued with weekly treatments because it was definitely doing me a world of good. Back to Strange Universe. When I told the producers that my shiatsu therapist wasn't available, they brought in their own massage therapist. She was a large Eastern European lady with dyed, bright red hair and completely different from Misako. She brought a massage table, and it was clear she didn't have a clue about shiatsu, which is rarely carried out on a table. But we put on a show for the camera, although I was disappointed that it just wasn't authentic. When the show aired a few weeks later, our hypnotherapy segment was matched with a segment showing a guy in India lying on a bed of nails and being run over by a tractor. Of course he survived. But this was all part of the strange universe. Chuck and I became good friends over the years, and in fact wrote a script together about Marilyn Monroe and President Kennedy meeting up in heaven and plotting revenge against their perpetrators. I know it sounds weird, but it was fun to work on. But just like 90% of scripts in Hollywood, it never got produced. It may not have been the greatest story after all. Next time, a dishevelled Drew Barrymore and a reunion with Nathan in Las Vegas. Thanks for listening.